Welcome to Biz Help for You with host Candy Messer. Entrepreneurs like to focus on the big picture, like profitability, success, and a smooth running organization. But there always seems to be those little things like taxes, employee compensation, laws, regulations, and more. Now you can get the answers you need in one place. Join us today as we break it all down for you. Now, here's your host, Candy Messer.
Hello and welcome to Biz Help for You with Candy Messer. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you found the information on last week's show, Networking and Playing the Long Game, informative. If you are unable to join us and would like to listen to the show, links can be found on our YouTube and Facebook pages, as well as multiple favorite podcast platforms. If you'd like to receive notifications on when our podcasts have been uploaded, please like and subscribe. And if there are topics you'd find beneficial or questions you have, please feel free to reach out to me at media@abandp.com. Now let's learn a little bit about our guest today. Heather Abbott is known as the Prosperity Pro because she uses over 30 years expertise as a CPA, financial advisor, and business owner to support her clients in creating significant shifts and results. When you have a mission or a dream that feels too big, Heather will guide you on your unique path to overcome challenges, reach your goals more easily, and make the impact that you want. So Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Interesting hearing the bio. That's always fun.
I always like hearing it and, getting a little bit of information about the guest. But of course, that's such a small amount of information. So I would love for you to tell us just a little bit more about yourself and how did you even become a Prosperity Pro?
Actually, I was given that title by someone, but how did I get to where I am? Well, it is my mission in life to help heart-centered people take their place amongst the wealthy. How I fell into that is kind of interesting because you would think, oh, she's an accountant. She must have liked numbers. She must have wanted to be an accountant. No, it was easy. I took it in high school for 2 years. In March of my graduating year, it was like, okay, I'll be an accountant. And the guidance counselor was like, do you want to talk to someone who is? And I said, sure. So I came down and I talked to a girl at the local accounting firm and she's like, yeah, I make about this much. And I said, is it pretty easy? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. And I went back up and I signed up for Acadia University and I didn't apply to any others. I was just like, which one's closest? And she said, Acadia. And I'm so glad I went to Acadia. But that's how I became an accountant. And financial advisor, same sort of thing, fell into it for other reasons. And just the knowledge that I have there is part of what I use, but it's more the fact that I've been on such a journey myself throughout my life. Like, I actually speak to the fact that overcoming money blocks is almost exactly the same as getting out of a mentally abusive relationship.
Interesting. I don't know if I've ever heard that correlation before. So it'd be great to touch on that a little bit too, as we go through this interview today. So, again, thanks for giving a little bit of your background too. Like I said, I like to hear a little bit more about the guests and it helps the listeners even identify, how is it that they're an expert and why should I even use their services? So thank you for sharing that. So why don't you just touch on that then? Why do you say that, money blocks is similar to an abusive relationship?
Well, there's so many similarities. There's always people telling you how you can get over it, but it doesn't matter because you have to find your own path. There's people who don't understand why you're broke or why you're in an abusive relationship because they've never been there. Good for them. There's a lot of ways that it correlates. You don't leave it until you are ready, until it's more uncomfortable where you are. Fear of the unknown is significant. And if you think about it, they're both relationships. It's a relationship with your money. It's a relationship with the abuser. And there's a lot of things that go into your beliefs around that relationship, and you have to overcome them. Like, what are people going to think of me if I leave this marriage? What are people going to think of me if I become rich? Like, there's there are so many different similarities. It's uncanny. So
Well, it's true. I've heard that before too, where sometimes people will limit their own success even because of they're afraid of what people might think of them, if they become more successful than their parents or their siblings or where they grew up from or something. So it's interesting to hear about that, in terms of just that money relationship, because a lot of people would probably think, well, that doesn't make sense. Why would you be afraid of making money?
well, you can ask yourself, what do you think of rich people?
Mm-hmm.
And if you have bad things to say about rich people, guess what? You're
Mm-hmm.
not going to want to become one. Subconsciously, you will sabotage yourself so that you don't become wealthy, because you don't want to be whatever it is your belief is, your negative belief about them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's obviously on a personal side even, but what about on the business? What are some of those common pitfalls and then you see that businesses are struggling with, or, maybe even put them out of business?
That they don't look at their numbers. Oh my gosh, every time that will take them down. They can have the best business ever. And they're like, but I have a bookkeeper, I have an
Mm-hmm.
accountant, I have a financial advisor. I'm like, great. How often do you sit down with them and go over the numbers? What? It's like, no,
Right.
sweet. No, no, no. They're not managing the business. They're not making the decisions. They're not saying, oh, look, you're spending more than you're bringing in. That's up to you. You have to look at the number. You don't have to work the numbers. You don't have to do the books, but by the geez, you do have to look at them. You can't wait until the end of the year to pull all the numbers together and say, oh, wow, I spent a lot on courses last year, and realize that you didn't make any money. That's
Right.
not how it works
Mm-hmm.
properly. No, that will kill them every time. That's the worst thing I see.
Yep. I do tell people too to look at the financial reports. And when we're working with somebody, we do their work, each month and send them financial reports and say, this has good information that you can use to make changes. But a lot of times, like I say, people are like, I just need it for tax prep. I don't necessarily need to look at it. And it is a little disappointing sometimes even that you put in this work to give them the information that they don't want to apply. But I think sometimes they feel they're so busy doing other things, that, oh, that's just information, that I could look at later, or maybe they feel they don't understand it and maybe they're embarrassed to even say something. So we do try to encourage people, like, let us know if you have questions so we can help answer those questions too, because there is a lot of data in there that can help you make those wise business decisions.
Exactly. I was speaking with a woman who told me I had a 7-figure business. I went bankrupt. Guess why? She was working at a loss, didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, when I would give people back their taxes, I got to the point where I would not hand it to them until I had flipped it open and pointed out the significant parts to them.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would give it to them and take the money. Because if I didn't, I knew the only thing they would look at is the bottom line. How much do I owe? How much am I getting back?
Right.
They wouldn't even look at how much they paid in overall. They just look at that one line. And I'm like, no, people, this isn't how it works.
Right.
Not if you want it. And again, like you work with this sort of thing. So, like if people don't have a conversation with you, there are things that get overlooked. There may be expenses that they can claim that they don't know, but you do, right? Like for me, there would be things on the taxes that if I didn't know they had a disability, I wouldn't think to tell. Apply for a disability tax credit. It's going to save you, like it's an $8,000 tax deduction every year. And if you qualify, you can get a registered disability savings plan where you put in $500 and the government puts in $1,500. Like, hello, all you need to do is tell me that you have health issues. But if we've never had that conversation, and that's on me as well, because I should be asking significant intake questions when you come. That is a good
Right.
sign.
Well, I think right here we should point out too that I'm interviewing you in a different area than some of our listeners are. So if they're listening to that specific discount that you're offering or credit that you're offering, it may not apply to them.
Oh,
So why
yeah.
don't you tell
Right, that's
listeners where
Canada.
you are? Yeah. Mhm.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Because we do have people that listen in different areas. But so for Canadian citizens, you're great, in terms of helping them with that tax and claiming that credit. In the United States, that may be a little bit different for you. But the point of that is talk to your tax preparer, right? And let them know what's
Yeah.
going on in your situation, in your life, because there are things that maybe you can get credit for that your CPA doesn't know, your tax preparer doesn't know that that's your situation.
And it is likely, if you poke around on your government website as well, that you would, if you search medical deductions for the IRS, that you may find a list. I know Canada has a list of medical deductions. It's pages and pages and pages of things that you can claim. Like if you're an adult wearing diapers medically because it's a medical necessity, you can claim them. Like and I'm sure there is information like that somewhere on the US site.
Mhm. Right.
And around the world. It's
Right.
likely governments usually share that information.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too, that a lot of times there's just tax deductions that people just aren't even aware of. So they don't even think, to tell their preparer. So update your tax preparer every year on your situation. Things may have changed. There may have been a marriage or birth, somebody, may have adopted a child or something, like all these different things could maybe affect your situation. So make sure you talk with them on a personal and a business situation level too. Your business may have incorporated where before you were a sole proprietorship, or, there's different changes that happen throughout a cycle of your business or your personal life.
Also talk to your financial advisor if there's a significant change in your life. A
Mhm.
birth, a death, the end of a marriage, any endings, any beginnings, any big
Right.
shifts. Talk to your financial advisor because there may be something that you should be looking at that you're not aware of. And honestly, that's the second place where people go wrong, is they don't know what they don't know.
Mhm.
They think they know everything, but there's this whole other section that they've never heard of. And if they'd heard of it, then they'd know that they don't have any knowledge on the topic.
Mhm. Right.
But
Well, it's so
if you don't know
true.
the topic exists, then you're not
Right.
gonna, yeah.
I mean, that's why I actually am starting a membership organization, a group or something with startups, even here in the United States, to tell them like things that they need to know that they probably don't know when they're first starting a business. So from your perspective too, what are some of the things that keep startups from making progress quickly in their businesses?
That would be that they try to build too many paths at one time, too many income paths. They get pulled down too many side roads, too much distraction. I've seen it so much because I've been online a lot over the last, just over a year. And everybody is trying to sell you a solution for everything. And it's always their solution, what works for them. And people buy this and buy that. It's like I hate to say it, but like a woman collecting shoes, right? You see another course and it's like, ooh, yeah, they feel kind of comfortable. Yeah, I think I'm going to take them. Yeah, okay, okay. Oh, wow, I already have brown shoes. Okay, well, they're slightly different. I'll just put them in the closet. And that's what's happening. A lot of these courses and trainings and things are getting purchased and they're not getting used.
Mhm.
And they're not necessary. You really need to focus on building the one path first. So if you picture where you are is like one side of a cliff and where you want to be is the other side. You're trying to build a bridge across. Do you think it's faster to build one bridge or is it faster to build 5?
Mhm.
How will you get to the profit side fastest? One
Right.
way, right? Drop the other
Mhm.
distractions because they're going to keep you from taking action on the thing that is most important. Figure out what that is. And
Mhm.
that being said, anytime you add something or you purchase something, for your business. It could be if you're creating a website. It could be if you decide you're going to do a podcast. It could be that you're hiring a coach. Always ask, what is it I'm hiring this to do? I got that from Joe DeMaria. He always says it. What are you hiring it to do? If there's no purpose, if it's, why do it? Why spend your time or your energy? Because time is more valuable than the money, really, because money is abundant. It's around everywhere. Some people find it easy to get, some people find it harder to get, but it is, you can make more money. You can't make more time.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. Well, and I think it's a good analogy that you gave too, because I think sometimes people think like, oh, well, if I have multiple streams of income, you hear this a lot, you should have multiple streams of income. So let's focus on different ways we can get the money in. But I think that analogy, just saying, at least to start, focus on that one thing, get really good at that one thing that's generating your income. And then later on, if you want to, the opportunity to do something else, you can look into that and see if it's feasible and, what are the time and resources it's going to take to do that. But at least starting out, yes, focus on one thing and get known for that one thing, right?
It's the same as picking a niche, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean those are the only people that you're going to market to. But if you do not say clearly that you are serving this one market in this one way, nobody will put up their hand because it doesn't resonate with anyone.
Right.
That market to everyone, you reach no one. Everybody, I would assume a lot of people know that by now.
Right.
And I had a really difficult time with that. But I know so much. I know everybody does. Everybody knows more than that one thing. Everybody serves more than that one person. Well, close to everybody. I'm sure it's not everyone, but most people serve multiple markets in multiple ways. But you have to get started with one. That's how you start, is with one step, one client, one method. Yes. So that is very important.
Well, and for those of us who've been in business for a while, we know that sometimes, the business and the personal are just so intermingled, and, we're working a lot. We dream about the business at night. It's not like someone who goes to work 9 to 5 and then leaves it all behind. So what would you tell somebody about how to separate their business and their personal lives?
You have to have a definite delineation. If you're not taking time for you, you can't sustain it. There has to be, I bring it up in my talks. The way I present this is, to get a fulfilled life, there's a triangle that you have to fill. And that triangle is freedom, fun, and finances, right? So if you are lacking in any one of those, you are restricted in how much fulfillment you can get from life. There's a hidden key in the middle, which is focus or clarity, knowing what it is that you want, where you're headed, being clear on what really matters to you. What, when you get to the end of your life, what will you be proud of that you did, so that you don't have any regrets? That is the key. So if you aren't doing that delineation, you aren't going to become fulfilled. In fact, you'll find a lot of things that are important in your life slipping away. The happiness is going. You have essentially bought yourself a job where you are overworked. Your boss is tired and cranky and a nightmare to work for. And the boss is you. You have to have a delineation. It can be having a set place in your home that when you're there, you're working. And if you're not there, you're not working. The thoughts about work have to be set aside at some point in the day. You have to treat it like a job in some ways, so that you can have that time for yourself. And it could be set hours, a set location. You've probably heard before, don't take your work into the bedroom. Like, don't set up a desk in the corner of your bedroom, because that space is not for that. There's feng shui also comes into it there, but don't bring your work into the kitchen or the living room, or like have a space so that when you leave it, you're like, okay, no, work is done. I heard a story one time where a man would come home from work, and in his mind, he would take his job off because he was an executive and had all the worries and concerns. He would take it off and set it on a tree outside, just imaginary, just taking the work off, set it on a tree, and then go into his house. And when he'd leave for work, he'd pick it back up, just mentally. So it was an actual exercise that he did, symbolic even, of the ending of his workday and the beginning of relaxation. Because if you overlap the two, and I know there's a ton of you out there that's hearing this who are doing this, stop overlapping them. You have to have the enjoyment in your life. Yes, you want to grow your business. Set hours for it. Set hours for you. Put it on your calendar.
Well, while you were talking about that too, I was thinking someone might be saying, but clients text me or they email me and I need to respond, and I don't want them to think that I don't care, and if I don't respond back to them quickly, I might lose them. Like, what would you say about that whole thing?
Set
Like, if
the
you're saying set your
expectation.
hours, right?
Set the expectation. 4-hour work week, he addresses that actually, where you don't answer your email you don't check your email constantly. Oh my God, email is one of the biggest time sucks on the planet. Don't go down that rabbit hole. Don't let it take over. Set your schedule and stick to it. You want millionaire habits? You want to be a millionaire? Set the millionaire habits, because I guarantee you they don't let their clients run their day or their life. What you do is you set expectations. You say, whichever way you want it to be, and please don't have it be email, but the fastest way to reach you is, and it is only for emergencies, or you could say you can reach me via Slack or Voxer or Telegram or WhatsApp, and I will get back to you within 24 hours. Set the expectation. I know a lawyer, a local lawyer, he had the most magnificent sign behind his receptionist, because it made me stop when I walked in with something that I wanted done right away. And I read it and it said, poor planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on our part.
Yep.
That is golden. That's absolutely golden. Poor planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on our part. And if you're listening to this later on, press pause, write that down, get the sign made and put it up.
Right. I think that's good for us on both sides of the coin too. Like, as we are clients of other people, if we haven't stayed on top of doing something, we shouldn't expect that we're going to go to them and let them, feel that it's an emergency, that we expect something done, quickly. And then on the other side, as business owners, again, if someone comes to us last minute and says, I need this done now, like you said, I'm sorry, but we have a process of how this works, and this is how we have to go through it. And we're not going to have enough time, to get that done before this deadline. And, we'll do our best, and it's hard to do that sometimes. I mean, I've had people that have come in. I was actually interviewed, the other day on a show, and someone asked me about the same thing. And I said, someone came in on April 12th one year with a year's worth of bookkeeping, saying that they had to have their tax return filed by April 15th. And I said, well, you do realize that even if we finished like today, your CPA does not have enough time to prep, all of this information to be able to submit it by the 15th. And you can't do a year's worth of bookkeeping in that short a period of time, and so it's not possible. Right. And so it's hard to hold that line, but we have to be reasonable as well for ourselves. Like I said, even as a business owner, I work a lot of hours too, but I do have to say at some point there are boundaries that I also have to uphold. And yes, we want to serve you, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we are not overworking ourselves or, jumping into something that becomes a pattern in the future where they just say, oh, well, they did it last time, they'll do it again.
Exactly. And always, you have to remember, you have to be the priority. It's your
Mhm.
business, and nobody else is going to stand up for you or your time
Right.
or what's important. You have to do it. And the best way is to have policies. And again, I go back to the whole relationship thing. We've kind of gone full circle here. Before you get into a relationship, ladies, you have to have your rules. What are the things you will not accept?
Right.
For me, I had 4 rules for my fiance now. I gave him 4 rules. One of them was, you can never, ever be mean to me on purpose. It will destroy me. If you accidentally hurt my feelings, okay, that's fine. But if you lash out at me on purpose in anger to hurt me, that's unacceptable. And it's the same with your business rules. You have to set them ahead of time. Your policies. When do you get paid? Are you willing to take on receivables? You don't have to. People can get financing somewhere else. You
Right.
do not have to take that on. And there is insurance for receivables. That's another really important thing people should know. But I try to stay away from them whatsoever. So as a speaker, you need to pay me 100% before I hit that stage. That's a rule. That's a policy. And if you create your policies ahead of time, then it's not a guesswork. Then you just say, no, it's policy. People don't question when you say it's policy. If you're just pulling
Right.
it out of the air, that's when they start to question it. And in a relationship, if you have never made any rules and your
Mhm.
lines are like a piece of rope on the floor and they can just keep kicking it over a little
Right.
bit, right? They just keep
Mm.
kicking it when you're not looking. It's like, oh, she noticed, I'm going to step back. And then they step back like 3 steps from where the rope is, but you don't realize there are still 5 steps in from where it started.
Mhm.
Make a definite line in your business, in your life, in your relationships. Make the rules so you know. You've heard the saying, oh, he crossed the line, or they crossed the line. You can't cross a line that doesn't exist.
Right. That's so true.
And that's
Well,
up to you.
and I was gonna say, I know we were talking a little bit earlier too about financial clarity and understanding your relationship, with money or other things too. But why would you tell somebody then that financial clarity is extremely important, both business and personal?
Have you ever heard of millionaires going bankrupt? I think one of them was running your country for a little while. There's actors, there's football players who are destitute 7 years later after they've made millions.
And you've
Why?
heard of the lottery too, right? People make all this money, they win the lottery, and then within 2 years, they're broke.
I would say there's a bit of a difference between the two, just
Mhm.
slightly. One are people who they have the set point where they're allowing the money in and they're used to having it, but they're
Mhm.
not managing it. They don't
Mm.
understand what their means level is. They and they're not planning for future them.
Right.
The lottery winners, there's a mindset shift that has never happened. They have
Mm.
never had money. They're not used to it. They don't have the ability, the set point to make reactions as a person with money. So what happens is they're making decisions based on what they were instead of what they are financially. And it just sifts away. Like usually within 3 to 4 years, they're right back where they were. Um, that's mindset work. That does you go get T. Harv Eker's book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. If you win the lottery, go pick up the book. That's one. There's plenty of them out there, but
Mhm.
I would say clarity with your numbers, knowing exactly what you can and cannot afford for your means level, for your income level, I mean, is critical. My grandmother, she knew exactly where every penny went. If you found $1 on the floor, she could tell you if it was hers because she'd look in her little book where she tracked everything. She had thousands of dollars in the bank, even though she had only ever had a small salary, and my grandfather as well. But she saved. Whereas people who would make 5 times as much as her would not have anything saved.
Right.
I've seen it time and time again. They don't plan for the future or what's important, and they don't know where they stand financially. In your experience, mine is I would estimate 10% of people know how to figure out what they can and cannot afford. What's your experience?
Yeah, it's interesting. There are a lot of people who don't really understand money at all. And even when you're giving that example where someone maybe, doesn't have a lot, but they save and they've got money, put away versus someone who makes a lot more. And I've seen that a lot too. I mean, someone who makes $300,000 a year who then has a garnishment on their wages because they didn't pay their taxes and they didn't plan for it, and then when you see what they're spending, and they're spending, $7,000 a month on rent and, $1,000 on a car. And you're like, you don't have to spend that much, but I think a lot of times people think they have an image that they have to portray too, and they're willing to, sacrifice their financial future for that perception, which to me, I find that is kind of sad to see, because you're sacrificing your future for what you think people want to see in you today.
I think there's a book on that, like The Millionaire Next Door or something like that. I can't remember what it was called. But basically, like, certain professions think they have to have this image and they overspend because of it. Whereas your next door neighbor who, is just driving a regular car, not a Bentley
Right.
or something, they may be a millionaire too. There's people around here that would have millions of dollars, but you would never know it.
Right.
Never know it. Yeah.
It's so true. Yeah. I think we just have to really prioritize things for ourselves and say, do I need to spend this money now, or can I save it for my future so I have a more comfortable retirement? And if you can put off some of those expenses, that really aren't necessary, I think that's another thing we can, just briefly touch on is something a want or a need, right? Even in your business, there could be wants and needs. In your personal life, there could be wants and needs, and understanding that financial picture and knowing, can you afford it or not, I think is a really good thing.
Yeah. Well, with the business, you can always use that profit first model, which if you're not familiar with it, there is a book on it. And I have an episode on my podcast that I'm going to be putting out soon where I speak with Rocky Lalvani about it. Yeah, so that is an important step to look at. And I'm forgetting the other point. It went right out of my head.
Well, I was talking about wants versus needs for whether it's personal or your business.
Oh, yes. And see, on my system, which is fantastic, you don't learn money management. Everybody's like, oh, but you don't learn it in school. Well, guess what, sweetie? You don't learn it when you become an accountant, and they don't teach it when you become a certified financial planner either. You're like, what? Yeah, no, they don't. But there are systems out there. I hate budgets. I don't like even the sound of them. It's like, oh, but you're going to tell me what I can do with my money. No, the way I do it is I divide it into obligations and food and fun, and also paying you. So paying you, you would have hopefully enough money that you can pay you for an account that's for splurging, and pay you for an account that is do not touch. This is money to make you money later. Right? But obligations and food and fun is how I break it down. They both have discretionary. Food and fun is obviously mostly discretionary, but obligations are as well, because any expense that you've agreed that you're going to pay, it could be that you're paying the internet every month. It could be subscriptions to things that you never use that you're paying every month, but it's an obligation. You know how much it is. There are things that are easily quantifiable that fit in the obligation section. It's really quite a system. I've had even number avoidant people who are like, I want to look. They find it super easy to use, and it's super fast too.
So I know we're coming to the end of the time that we have together. So I would love for you to share if you have an offer for the listeners.
What I just talked about, that system, I wanted it to be so that everybody could access it no matter their income level. So the very basic one is free. It's a little booklet, totally actionable. Instructions are there. And it's really short. Don't just go download it and don't open it, because that's not going to help you. You have to open it, read it, and then the last I think 3 pages of it you print out and you do the work. It takes you through that system. I don't have anything for sale yet for the higher level unless you contact me personally. It's not on my website or anything yet. It's getting set up, but I have an Excel sheet that does calculations for you, and I have a PDF version printout of the Excel sheet that you can do the calculations yourself. They're not hard calculations, and how to do them is right there. It's in the booklet, how to do it. All the information's in the booklet, but the PDF makes it easier, and the Excel sheet makes it even super easier, and training makes it easier. But yes, I'm giving away the booklet.
Perfect.
Long introduction.
And where, again, the website?
Oh, my website is H for Heather, C Abbott, ABBOTT.ca for Canadian.ca. So hcabbott.ca. And on the top, it says Become an Insider. Just click that button and it will take you to the booklet.
Perfect. And if anyone wants to connect with you anywhere else, do you have, like social media or anything that you would like to share?
I do. It actually, the easiest way, you can look for me online. I think as long as you include the C in my name, Heather C. Abbott, you would find me. HC Abbott is what I use for a lot of things. So like LinkedIn, you'd find me under Heather C. Abbott. Instagram, where I almost never am, is HC Abbott. So those 2 things you would find me. And there's links on my website as well. So the hcabbott.ca is the key.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Heather, for being a guest on my show and sharing your tips with the listeners.
I absolutely loved it. It was great. I love the information that you shared as well. And I do hope your clients listen.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And to the listener, thank you for tuning in. I hope you found this topic interesting and that it answered some of your questions about financial clarity for a successful business. If you have any additional questions or comments, be sure to reach out to Heather at her website or give us a message at media@abandp.com. And would you please share our show information with those you know? I'd greatly appreciate your support. I hope you can join us next week for the topic, Digital Marketing Pillars, Making Digital Marketing Plans Make Sense. And please remember, you can connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And my website is abandp.com. You can also find the podcast posted on multiple favorite podcast platforms, including Google, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Until next time, have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next Tuesday. Have a terrific week.